All right, let's talk about Tesla. I mean, it's one of those companies that's just impossible to ignore, right? And for anyone looking to invest, figuring out Tesla is, well, it's about so much more than just cars. You're really betting on a whole vision for the future of energy, of how we get around, and even artificial intelligence. So the big question is this a game-changing tech company or just a car maker with a ton of hype? Let's dig in and find out. So check out this number, 1,773,443. That's how many cars Tesla pumped out in 2024, just 1 year. Now, that's not just some random stat on a spreadsheet. It's a massive statement about their sheer industrial scale. And it's exactly why, no matter what you read in the headlines, Tesla is a company that every single investor has to pay attention to. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the numbers, then jump back to see how they went from a tiny startup to this behemoth. We'll get into what Tesla actually does, because it's more than cars. Then we'll follow the money, see how it all adds up, and most importantly, we'll cover what you, as an investor, really need to know, the good, the bad, and the risks for what's coming next. So how on earth did this happen? How did a startup from Silicon Valley grow into an automotive giant that's basically shaking up an entire industry that's been around for over 100 years? Well, their history, it's a real roller coaster of crazy bets, moments where they almost went under, and then just explosive growth. You really have to start here with their mission statement. The company was founded way back in 2003, and this has been the goal from the get-go. See, when Elon Musk got involved in 2004, the plan was never just about building cool electric cars. It was about completely changing the game for how we use energy, period. And honestly, that one idea has been the driving force behind pretty much every big move they've made since. This timeline really shows you the master plan in action. It was kind of brilliant, actually. They started with the Roadster, a super expensive sports car that only a few people could buy. But the idea was to use the money from that to fund a slightly more affordable car, and then use that money to build a really affordable car for the masses. It was a huge gamble, and that period in 2017, they called it production hell for a reason. I mean, it almost took the whole company down. But the fact that they survived that is exactly why they have this massive global footprint today. So that brings us to the Tesla of today. And this is super important. A lot of people hear Tesla and they just think electric cars. But if you're looking at it as an investment, you've got to see the bigger picture. It's really more like 4 separate companies all working together. Okay, first up, you've got the car business. This is the one everyone knows, right? The Model S, the 3, the X, the Y, these are the bread and butter. Then you have things like the Cybertruck and the Tesla Semi stretching into new areas. This is still the heart of the company. It's the engine that brings in most of the cash. Then there's the energy business, and this part is growing fast. The easy way to think about it is like this. The Powerwall is a battery for your house, and the Megapack, well, that's a gigantic battery for the entire power grid. A lot of investors are looking at this piece of the puzzle and seeing huge, huge potential for growth down the line. All right, then we have the big, high-stakes bet on artificial intelligence. We're talking about full self-driving, or FSD. Now, this is really key for any investor to understand. Even though it's called full self-driving, it's not. It's what's known as a level 2 system, which just means the driver has to be paying attention and ready to take over at any second. Getting to true self-driving is probably the single most ambitious and, yeah, the most controversial thing they're trying to do. And finally, you have the whole ecosystem that ties it all together. This is what keeps customers in the Tesla world. You've got the massive supercharger network, which is now pretty much the standard in North America, plus their own service centers, even their own insurance. It's all built to create this seamless system where they control everything from start to finish. Okay, so you've got cars, batteries, AI, charging stations. How does all of that actually make money? Let's follow the dollars and look at the financials. So this table really tells a story. Look at that revenue growth. It's almost doubled since 2021. I mean, that's incredible. But, and this is a big but, look closer at the net income. That's the actual profit they take home. After hitting a high in 2023, it took a pretty big dive in 2024. What does that tell us? It's a clear signal that their profit margins are getting squeezed, probably because they've been cutting prices, and well, there's a lot more competition out there now. Yeah, no big shocker here. Selling cars is where the vast majority of the money comes from. But for anyone thinking long-term about Tesla, the real story is in those smaller pieces of the pie. Think about it. Once you've developed software or designed a battery system, you don't have to build a whole new factory for every single sale. That means the potential for profit margins is way, way higher. That's exactly why you have to keep a close eye on how fast those other businesses are growing. All right, this is where it gets really interesting for investors. You have to be able to step back from all the noise and the hype and just look at the facts. You need to weigh the things Tesla has going for it against the very real challenges it's up against. And let's be clear, Tesla's strengths are pretty huge. Most car companies buy their parts from other suppliers, not Tesla. They are what we call vertically integrated, meaning they design and build almost everything important themselves. Their own batteries, their own software, their own motors. That level of control, plus their giant factories and an incredibly powerful brand, that gives them a major, major edge. But, and you knew there was a but coming, that edge isn't what it used to be. The competition is just exploding. You have the big, traditional car makers finally getting their act together, using their decades of manufacturing muscle to pump out new EVs. And then you have a ton of new, hungry startups jumping into the race. The whole playing field looks completely different than it did even just a few years ago. And it's not just competition. The company is dealing with some pretty serious headwinds. You've got a lot of vehicle recalls, you've got lawsuits about their factory conditions, and governments are taking a much closer look at their self-driving tech. And then there's the stock itself, which can jump up or down like crazy based on a single tweet from the CEO. Oh, and a huge chunk of their business is in China, which brings a whole other layer of political risk to the table. So, with all that in mind, what's next? Where is Tesla putting its chips for the future? And what are the big risks that come with those bets? When you look at the road ahead, it really boils down to 4 huge bets. First and foremost, can they actually solve self-driving? I mean, truly solve it. Going from a simple driver assist to a car that can drive itself anywhere is this massive challenge, both technologically and legally. If they pull it off, the value is astronomical. If they don't, it's a very expensive failure. Second big question, can their energy business get so big it starts to compete with traditional power companies? Third, how do they handle China? It's a gigantic market for them, but also a giant political wildcard. And last but not least, in a world full of new EVs, can they keep finding ways to build cars cheaper and protect their profits? And this quote from Elon Musk, it really says it all, doesn't it? This is something every investor has to grapple with. Tesla is famous for setting these incredibly bold, ambitious timelines for new stuff, and they're also famous for blowing right past those deadlines, sometimes by years. It's just part of the story. And that really brings us to the billion-dollar question, maybe the trillion-dollar question that every single Tesla investor has to ask themselves. Is Elon Musk, the visionary, controversial CEO, the company's single greatest asset, or is he its single greatest risk? So, when it's all said and done, you're left with this incredible balancing act. On one hand, you have these undeniable strengths, their manufacturing power, their lead in technology, and this massive, massive potential in both energy and AI. But on the other hand, you have some very serious risks. The competition is heating up, regulators are watching them like a hawk, and of course, the constant drama around the leadership. And understanding that balance, that tension between the incredible potential and the very real risks, that's the absolute key for anyone thinking about investing in Tesla. Learn, invest, repeat. Investing made understandable.